Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to African Techpreneur. Now, I just want to give some background about why we are doing this, why we do African Techpreneur. I see there are many people here today that are here for the first time. And just to give you a sense of what this webinar is all about, the way I like to see the African Techpreneur webinar is it's the things they don't teach you in school. It's all about things that you need to know to become successful in your work, in your career, in the future. Well, now as well as in the future. I mean, if you look at the march of technology, just as we thought that technology had reached a plateau when tech advancement was not going to be really big anymore, suddenly we find that there are completely new technologies emerging that are changing our lives, changing our work, and making huge impact in pretty much every aspect of life. Now, the question is, very importantly, how is this affecting us? I mean, when we hear about artificial intelligence, for example, when we hear about Internet of Things, first of all, what are those things? And secondly, how do they affect us? If something is happening, for example, in Silicon Valley, let's say Elon Musk comes up with some new invention, how does that affect us here in Africa, specifically in South Africa? So African Techpreneur is partly to create awareness, to inform and create awareness about what's going on in the world around us, but also more importantly, how we can leverage what's happening in the world for our own success, both in business as well as in our careers. Sometimes it's not easy for people to join the dots. Sometimes you can see things happening, but it's hard to envision how can I use that new development, how can I use that new technology to advance my career, or how can I apply it into my business. Now, let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was in a meeting at one of the big supermarket chains in this country, and I was joined in the meeting by some very bright young people. They are senior management at the business, and despite being somewhat tech savvy, they had this concern that how are we going to implement technology into our business, and will we cope with technology in our business? Will our staff embrace that new culture that technology will bring? Will our current systems in the business allow for us to implement this technology? So they have all these concerns. Now, African Techpreneur, this webinar series, serves to answer those questions. So whether you've just finished matric or you're one of our IT varsity students who are already studying technology, or you are an existing business, if you want to know about technology, how it's disrupting and how it's going to change our world, this is the place for you. This is where we are going to discuss these things. And of course, I'm going to be bringing lots and lots of guests. Like last week, we met Toliswa, and she's a professional web developer. She has been for some time. And I think it was great to know what her experience was like. So without any delays, let me jump into today's topic. Today's topic is primarily about disruption. Now, I'm going to show you some slides. Now, I'm going to skip all this, and I'm going to talk about 3 facts, right? So the first fact is, did you know the top 10 in-demand jobs this year, meaning in 2021, didn't exist 10 years ago? I mean, take a look at some of the jobs on the screen. These are some of the jobs that companies are looking for people to do around the world. I mean, take the word Android, right? 10 years ago or 12 years ago, we didn't know what the word Android meant. Today, we know that Android is the operating system that runs on your Samsung phones. In the same way, the word iPhone. If somebody told you 10 years ago, hey, iPhone, you'd be like, okay, you phone who? But today, it's a common thing. It's the device that Apple makes. So technology is definitely changing our world, and it's also creating new opportunities. So these are the opportunities that have come about thanks to technology. Now, here's the second fact. The second fact is this: half of today's jobs, 50% of all jobs today, will not exist in 10 years' time, meaning that in 10 years' time, many of the jobs that people are currently doing will not exist. Now, here's an easy example, and that is the example of drivers with self-driving vehicles, self-driving cars and trucks, and even to an extent, self-driving airplanes. What's going to happen to drivers' jobs? I mean, taxi drivers, truck drivers in Sweden, they've got fleets of trucks that are, driving themselves from one side of the country to the other. What's going to happen to those jobs? Obviously, those jobs are going to disappear, and the self-driving vehicles will take place. But it's not something to panic about. It's not something to be afraid about. The next fact: did you know? This one is the most interesting, if you ask me. In the next 10 years, we are going to see more tech innovation than we did in the previous 100 years. Can you imagine that? This is something scientists are telling us all over the place. In the next 10 years, we're going to see more tech advancement than we did in the previous 100 years. In other words, the 100 years that brought us computers, internet, devices, mobile devices, mobile phones, you name it, all of these things that we are used to, we are now, in the next 10 years, we're going to see more tech advancement than all of that. How is that even possible? Now, it's possible through what I like to call this phenomenon here, the rise of the machines. It's possible because whereas in the previous 100 years, we were the ones doing the tech innovation alone, in the previous 100 years, that was the case. But in the next 10 years, we are going to have help. And the help is coming from machines, from artificial intelligence. Now, most people call this phenomenon the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0. That's what it's called. What's happening is technology is becoming so capable that in the next 10 years, instead of us doing things on our own, instead of us inventing and innovating on our own, we are going to have help. We're going to have technology to help us. And it's already happening. I mean, artificial intelligence is a major part in all kinds of innovation. Scientists are testing new innovations using artificial intelligence. They are simulating things using AI. What is life going to be like on other planets, for example? They are using artificial intelligence to run simulations on life on other planets. So it's a mind-boggling time to be living in, when we are not just inventing things on our own, but we've got help. We've got other our own creations, which is technology, to help us. But before I proceed, let's talk about history, right? We hear about the fourth industrial revolution, but what about the first, second, and third? I mean, you ask many people about the first, second, and third industrial revolutions, and they didn't even know those actually existed. So I want to talk about this. This is a history lesson now. The first industrial revolution took place about 250 years ago, when somebody invented the steam engine. When the steam engine was invented, that gave rise to a new age in human civilization, the age of machines, of steam-powered machines. So then we saw factories coming up that were powered by steam. We saw steam locomotives. We saw a whole lot of other things like steam ships. So that was the first industrial revolution. Then came the early 1900s, 1901, 1902. That's when the second industrial revolution kicked in, the age of mass production and assembly lines. And of course, electricity was invented about that time. So that now brought us into the second. And then around the 1970s, we saw the invention of computers, or rather computers that became cheap enough and small enough that we could afford them in our homes. We could afford them in our businesses. So that gave rise to the third industrial revolution, the age of computers, the age of automation. And part of the third industrial revolution is what we are doing right now. Our computers, our mobile devices, the fact that I'm talking to you from one part of the world and we've got people from all parts of the world listening to me. That is the third industrial revolution. But now, concurrent to the third, we've got the fourth, the current industrial revolution. And this one is different from the third in a sense that it's driven by three things. One is cyber physical systems, the other one is networks, and the third is artificial intelligence. Now, these are the things that are driving today's industrial revolution. It's what's changing our worlds. Now, if you're wondering what these things mean, what are cyber physical systems, what are networks, or what is AI, don't worry about that. I'm going to explain that now. Now, take a look at this next picture, right? This guy is Lee Sedol. He is the world Go champion. Go is a board game. You can see the game in the picture. He's playing the game. Now, previously, we couldn't create a board game or a computer game that could play Go. We couldn't program a computer to play Go for the simple reason that although Go is a simple game to play, the number of possible moves in a game of Go is equal to more than the number of atoms in the universe. So it's a huge number. It's a massive number of moves. Now, typically how programmers would program a game like chess or Go is that they would code every possible move of the game into the computer. And as you're playing against the computer will know what its next moves are and what will be the next and the next and the next moves until the end of the game. So every time, for example, if you're playing chess against a computer, every time you make a move, the computer predicts every move that it will make and every move that you will make right till the end of the game. And that's how it will roll with that game. Now, Go is just too big. There was just too much data to input, so they didn't go that route. What they did instead was they gave the computer machine learning algorithms. So basically, they used an artificial intelligence to watch a game of Go being played. It learned how to play just by observing, and then it began to play against itself. And not only that, but it split itself into two personalities and it started to play against itself. And then what happened was they decided, well, you know what, this thing is getting really good. Let's try testing it against people. And so they tested it initially with a group of people, and then they brought in the European champion and the computer beat all of them. Then they said, well, let's bring this guy, Lee Sedol. This guy is untouchable. There is no way the computer will beat him. You know what happened? The computer beat him. This computer is called AlphaGo. I strongly recommend you guys do some research about AlphaGo. So that is the power of artificial intelligence. Not only did it learn to play the game by itself, but it beat a world human champion in this game. So that is one of the drivers of the fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence. The other one is cyber physical systems. What is a cyber physical system? Let me show you. I'm going to skip this slide here. And I'm going to get to this slide. This is the one that I'm looking for. Now, if you look at this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car. If you know a little about cars, you'll know this is the Tesla Model S. But what most people don't realize is that this is not an ordinary car. This is a cyber physical system. It's what we call a cyber physical system from a technology perspective. In other words, it is a computer that is living and operating in the real world, and it's aware of its surroundings because it's a self-driving car. The Teslas are all self-driving cars. So this car, as much as, yes, it is a car, but it's also an artificial intelligence system. And it has sensors, and it has GPS, and it knows what's happening in its surroundings. That's what allows it to navigate in the world. Now, I don't want to go too in-depth into artificial intelligence and cyber physical systems, because I'll be releasing my AI course shortly, where I describe all of that in a lot of detail. But I just wanted to bring these couple of examples just to show you exactly what is happening in the world of technology, and what are the drivers that are behind this change that's taking place. So I'm going to stop sharing. Sweet. Okay, so I'm back. Okay, so we had a glimpse into what's going on in the world around us, right? So we can see that there's this fourth industrial revolution that's kicked in, that's changing our world, and it's driven primarily by artificial intelligence. And as we saw, AI is so capable now, it can learn by itself, and it can compete against humans. But AI is not just about that. AI is about solving everyday problems. And the other driver we saw is of cyber physical systems of the fourth industrial revolution. And this one is a good example is self-driving vehicles. But also, when you look at I don't know if you've noticed, when you go to a mall and you go to the parking lot and you see on the roof just above where the cars park, there's a little light there. That light is a sensor. It shows up green, and when a car parks underneath it, it turns red. Now, what is this? This is also a cyber physical system. It is a sensor in the parking lot that knows that there's a car parked inside it. Now, somewhere in the shopping center, there is a computer, there's a server where all of these sensors are pushing their information to. And that sensor knows at any given time where cars are parked and which parkings are empty. Now, in the near future, when we have self-driving cars, what's going to happen is, as you are approaching the mall, your car, which is driving by itself, will communicate with the mall computer, and it'll say, hey, I'm about to enter this parking lot. Show me where the empty spaces are. So well before it comes to the mall, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before you arrive at the mall, your car has already talked to the mall computer, and the mall computer will send back information that, hey, you know what, go to level 3, parking number 56 is now available, and I'm reserving it for you. And in you come, and your car is parking there. That's one application of cyber physical systems and AI working together. Here's another example. Farmers, I mean, I mentioned this in the previous episode, how farmers in KZN are using AI to monitor their cows. But let's go up to countries in Africa like Kenya that there's a lot of subsistence farming going on. So what's happening there is big companies like IBM are helping small farmers to increase productivity of their farms by placing, this is really cool, they're placing sensors into the soil, and those sensors are able to give the farmer live feedback about the condition of the soil and what's going on with the soil, because obviously the soil is where the plants are growing, right? And if the soil is bad, it will directly affect the plants. So they have to make sure that all. I'm just going to hand off to Akifa once again. Akifa, back to you. So somebody is not muted. Akifa, if you don't mind muting everyone. Thank you. Awesome. So what these farmers are, or what these companies are doing, they are placing these sensors into the soil, and the soil is giving the farmers live feedback right on their phones. So if there's some kind of deficiency in the soil, or there's some kind of disease in the soil, the farmers know it immediately. And what they can do is they can act accordingly. So if water is less or fertilizer is less, instead of just putting fertilizer everywhere, now they can target specific areas of their farm. And what's happened is that since they started implementing this, this has increased crop yield drastically. So that's agriculture. Let's take medical technology. In the future, there are going to be robots that will operate on people. In fact, they say in the next 10 years, human surgeons are just going to be standing by and watching the robots that are actually operating on people. That's where technology is going. Now, what's great about robot surgeons is that they have a level of precision that a human hand doesn't have. They can make cuts that are just a few cells wide, which no human hand can do. And they're going to be a lot more effective. In fact, they say there's a joke in the medical tech industry where in the next 10 years, if you let a human operate on you, people say you're crazy. They'll say you are putting your life at risk. You should only let a robot operate on you. Now, if you think that's something in the far future, it's not. It's already happening. There's a robot surgeon called Da Vinci that a number of hospitals around the world are already using. One of those hospitals is right here in Umhlanga in Durban that has one of these Da Vinci machines. The difference is right now it's required to be used under human supervision. But scientists say there's no reason in the near future that a robot will be able to completely do the operation. So that is changing. So look at the various fields we already spoke about, right? We spoke about the field of transportation, cars, trucks, airplanes. These are going to be run by AI. Then we went to agriculture. Then we went to medical technology. Now we go to the field of law. In the field of law, now, traditionally, humans have been the only ones that could do knowledge work, and lawyers are knowledge workers. They are experts in their fields. But recently, there was an experiment done in the United States where they pitched some of the best lawyers in the world against an artificial intelligence system. What they did was they took an ordinary agreement. It was a non-disclosure agreement, and they made mistakes in those agreements, deliberate mistakes. And they presented that document to 5 human lawyers, expert lawyers, and they also presented it to an artificial intelligence system. And they said, well, find the mistakes. The humans took, I think, 45 minutes, and the artificial intelligence took like 5 minutes, and it found more mistakes than the humans found. So in other words, it was much faster and much more accurate than its human counterparts. And that proved something. It proved that in the near future, technology is going to play in the space that was traditionally human driven. So now, I can go on and on talking about where technology is playing a role that in a way we couldn't imagine before that technology will play a role. The question is, what happens to us as human beings? There's these fears that technology is going to take jobs away, that technology is going to make us all unemployed, and there's not going to be anything left for humans to do. Listen to me. Don't worry about that. That is not something that's ever going to happen, because there always has been these fears about technology, and there's always going to be place for human beings. Now, let me give you an example, right? Around about 1900, 1901, when large-scale industrialization started to kick in, that second industrial revolution I spoke about, then there were all sorts of people making all kinds of predictions that machines are going to take people's jobs away and people are going to starve. Here's a good example, right? Around the 1900s, how did people get around? They got around on horses. And when cars came in, people were terribly afraid that all of these, the human beings that are in the horse business, whether you are buying and selling horses, or you're breeding horses, or you were a horse vet, or you do the horse shoes, all of these people are going to be unemployed and they're going to starve to death. What happened? Cars came in, horses disappeared as a serious means of transportation. Did those people starve to death? They didn't. They just found other jobs to do. In the same way, there were people that were weavers. They used to weave cloth. And then along came the machines that did all the weaving. What happened to the people the weavers of old times? They just found other things to do. Guys, this is the way of technology. It takes away certain opportunities. It makes certain jobs obsolete, but it creates other opportunities. And the opportunities that are coming up in the future are massive. There are massive opportunities that are coming up. For example, in the medical technology space, you're going to get people that, okay, let's take one field of technology. Let's just take robotics as the one field. Robots don't make themselves. What's going to happen is we're going to need people to design robots, to design the machines, to build them, to program them, to train them. So that is bringing up an entire field in itself. The whole field of robotics is already creating so many jobs. The field of self-driving cars is creating tens of thousands of jobs in itself. So, and another space is agri-tech. We spoke about agriculture. I know people in cities that are growing crops in sheds, in warehouses, in cities. They no more, you no more need huge farms. In fact, I mentioned this in the previous episode. I went to a farm on the outskirts of Kwaduguza in KwaZulu-Natal, and there's this young lady who's growing green peppers and cucumbers and tomatoes in tunnels. And it's a scientific process. It uses computers, it uses technology to monitor the crops. It uses a fraction of the water that a normal farm would use. It uses a fraction of the space that a normal farm would use. And she's running a thriving business. So the future, guys, is in things like this. But most importantly, the future is in entrepreneurship, in doing your own business. Remember that machines don't buy commodities. People buy commodities. People buy stuff. People drive economies, not machines. And we are coming back to an age where, in the old days, where there used to be small businesses, you had a person that had a shop or two shops, and they used to thrive with those small businesses. Then we went to a phase where there's big business, there's massive global size businesses. Now we're coming back to a time where people are going back to small businesses. But the difference is these are not small businesses that are going to operate in the physical world. These are digital businesses. And we can see it all around us. I mean, just pick up WhatsApp. If you are in a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, there are people selling all sorts of things. Everything from food to cars to property. All over the place, people are selling stuff. And these are just commodities. People are also selling services. I mean, you can start a web design business today, and you can do business all over the world. You can work for companies all over the world. I mean, we are currently doing a web design job for a company in Canada, which is tens of thousands of kilometers away from us, and we've never met our clients. So the possibilities, guys, are endless. Now, I said this before, and I'm saying it again, and I'll conclude and I'll take your questions. You can be in one of two groups right now. You can be in a group of people who are all the time worried and afraid and negative about what's going on, and is my job going to disappear, or is my business going to disappear thanks to technology? Or you can be in the other group, the positive group, the people who are looking forward to technology, who are constantly updating themselves, informing themselves, Like you guys that are studying at IT Varsity, every day you are learning about technology, you're learning new things, you're keeping yourself up to date. So you are already in the positive group. So you are not just positive about the future, but you're actively looking for opportunities. You're constantly applying your mind. You're attending webinars like this. You're reading books, and you're understanding. You got a sense of what's in the future, and a good understanding of how this technology is going to affect your career and your business. And you're constantly adapting, and you're seizing these opportunities. So Group A, negatives, or Group B, positives. Now, the choice is yours. You can choose to be in either group. Personally, I'm in the positive group. I can only see the benefits that technology will bring. I can see specifically in my space, in the space of education, how technology is allowing me and my team to take education to those people who never had opportunities before. I mean, deep rural KwaZulu-Natal. Some of our IT Varsity students are there. If you're one of those, put your hands up. If you're in rural South Africa, next month we're going to be training 100 students in KwaTuguza and Mandini municipalities. Again, very rural communities. Those kids don't have the opportunity to come to Durban and Johannesburg and Cape Town and attend the big universities, but we are giving them the opportunity. How? Through technology, through our online learning. We're giving them the opportunity to learn. So in my space, that's how I'm finding technology to be beneficial, to change the world, to transform people's lives. In the same way, in pretty much every field you can imagine, technology is having a positive impact. Yes, they are the negatives, but there is an overall net positive impact that technology is bringing to the world. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and that's it for today's episode, and I'm going to take your questions. So, Akifa, all yours.
Hi. Well, I don't know, the chat is on fire today. So we had Sivakazi with his fears and talking about, potentially having robots go insane. And I think that is a fear that a lot of people have with AI, especially. We talk about AI going rogue, for example. So maybe I'll put on the point of, AI being potentially dangerous or going rogue or insane, in his words, of course.
Yeah, look, AI can be compared to a knife. Let's take the example of a knife, right? A knife is an extremely handy thing, is extremely helpful. But if you use it for the wrong purposes, to go and harm somebody, then obviously you don't blame the knife. You blame the person holding the knife, the person using the knife for all the wrong reasons. Now, AI is the same. AI is potentially a force of good. It can make our lives so much better, so much easier. Or we can use it, like in the movie Terminator, to destroy ourselves, right? AI is just logic. It's just code in a computer, but it will obey what we ask it to obey. If I, for example, in the future, if I make a robot to go and hurt someone, you don't blame the robot. You blame yourself. So I think what we need, if you are afraid, what you need to be afraid of is not the computers. You need to be afraid of the people that have bad intentions. And that's always been the case. We can't escape the fact that, there's not always people that have the best of intentions. There are people who want to harm others, and who are less than honest. So I wouldn't say we should be afraid of technology. I'd say, or AI. I'd say start thinking about the ways that AI is going to make our world a better place, and more importantly, start thinking about the opportunities for business and careers that AI is going to present to all of us.
Cool. I actually have a question, and I think this is really around the laws of AI. Like technology is moving at such a rapid pace, but the laws that governs technology is not as fast as the technology that's growing. What do you think would be the potential future or the dangers that we're looking around the ethics, the ethical part of programming and creating AI solutions?
I think there's going to be a need for that. That's a very good question. What is the ethics? What are the laws around this technology? There's going to be a need for us to sit down and really think about these laws. I mean, in the mid 20th century, we had the Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics. Laws like you will not harm a human being, etc. Laws like that. But I don't think that's enough. That's good. It's a starting point, but there's going to be a whole lot more that we're going to need to put into place. And I think along with scientists, we need to bring on board people, lawmakers, legal eagles, and also religious leaders to help work together to come up with the laws for AI. But it's not just that. I mean, you can extend that to other aspects of technology. Think about the technology around genetic engineering, where all over the world scientists are now creating genetically modified creatures and things and vegetables. There's even in the near future we're gonna be able to go into a lab and design a baby. So a couple will go in and say, well, I want my baby to have this kind of eyes and this kind of physique and that color hair and that kind, you name it. So
you read my mind, actually, because I wanted to, like, when we look at technology such as CRISPR and the twins that was manufactured in China using your biotechnology, things like that. The ethical barriers is not very clear around topics such as genetically modified humans.
Exactly. So, and it's also cloning technology. Cloning technology is here. What's the ethics around that? If you see the Netflix series Living with Yourself, then you'll see there's some real ethical issues around cloning also. All right. Any more questions?
I see Sonali Sive has her hands up. Let's see.
All right. Go for it.
Okay. I don't know if she has do you have a question, Sonali Sive? Okay. There's another person asking questions. If you have your hands up, let me just ask you to unmute quickly. Give me a second. There we go. Go on. Okay.
Reversing a truck or something.
Okay, let's go to the chat. I'm going to ask some questions. I see is from Bright. Bright, if you want to ask a question out loud, by all means do so. You can take yourself off mute and then we can unpack it. Okay, let's see.
Okay, there's a question on the chat I found very interesting. What if the robot goes insane?
Yeah, that was Sivakazi.
Yeah, but is it really 100%? I think I'd be more worried about insane humans than insane robots. They trust me. Unless something breaks really badly inside, I don't think robots can go insane.
Oh yes, something from Bright that says, at Bilal, this AI and technology that's coming and already here, it already feels like it's going to be expensive. What's your take about people who won't be able to afford the education training in order to stay abreast with it? What's their fate like? And yeah, so we're talking about, like, I think just to obviously simplify his question is regarding the expenses related to AI for the average guy, basically. How do they take advantage of this?
Okay, look, there's two aspects to it, if I'm hearing the question correctly. One is the AI itself, and the other is the education to prep ourselves for AI. As far as the AI itself goes, it's gone very cheap. Think about it. There's AI built into your phones, right? For example, your Siri and the Google Assistant, the the image recognition. These are gone very cheap and accessible. As far as the knowledge goes, as far as learning goes, I agree. To get quality education is very cheap, or very expensive, let's put it that way. But thanks to technology, we can make it reachable to the masses. I mean, we're doing it with at IT Varsity. We've got 200 people learning technology, coding, AI right now with us. And they are the most unlikely people, because these are not people living in Silicon Valley or one of the world's tech capital. These are people living in townships and rural parts of KZN. But the thing is, they've been given the opportunity and they are flying with it. They are doing well. So I think technology is going to play a big part in leveling the playing field and democratizing education. It's going to make it available to everyone. And along with that, there's one other element which I have to mention, which is the different models of doing business. You see, in the old days, the corporate capitalist system, it was profits over everything, growth, scalability, profits. The future businesses are going to be about people. People first, profits second. And what's great about that is that we're already seeing that. We're already seeing that trend all over the world, where people are fed up of giant, faceless, nameless corporations. They've become suspicious of them. They rather work with small businesses and get the personal training or personal service from these organizations. Just to give you guys an example, last week I met with a venture capitalist who wants to. Well, he thought he wanted to invest in IT Varsity, but he says, I don't like your model. So I says, what about our model you don't like? He says, your model is too personal. It's too focused on individuals. What you need is to be scalable, cut down on the expenses, cut down on the service and support, and grow global, and then we'll invest $500,000 US in you. I didn't say it to him in these words, but in my head I was like, go to hell. I don't care about your money. Our soul as IT Varsity is all about caring for the people that we work with, caring for our students, and looking after every student as a human being, not just as a number on our system or as an entry in our database. So we'll continue to do business this way, because I can foresee that the future of education and all business is about people first and profits afterwards. So I know I gave quite a long answer to that question, but I think one thing led to another. Yeah, next question.
Okay, we have a question from Asindiswa. Which software you use to process the work in order to be tracked by robots, and how to monitor robots or people who check up every time? Okay, I think just to understand the question is maybe what software do you use to monitor or process robots, who's going to do like mundane tasks that humans are currently doing?
Look, it's hard to tell. It depends on the manufacturer. I mean, think about self-driving cars, right? These are robots. Self-driving cars are actually robots. They are computers that can move around in the world. The self-driving capabilities of these cars are coded into their computers, their onboard computers, and they typically use languages like Java to code the AI. As far as monitoring goes, I think in the near future you won't need any special software. You'll need your mobile phone, and your car will basically talk to your phone, and your phone will monitor your car. So, for example, if you send your car out, so let's say you wanted the car to go and pick up your kid from school, and you'd say you'd open the app on your phone and you'd set its route. The car will leave, and as it goes and comes back, you'll be able to track it on an app like Google Maps. So you'll see this little flag moving on your screen against the map of your town. So that's how robots and other machines will be tracked and monitored. I hope I answered that question. I wasn't very clear about the question, But I hope
Yeah.
that's the answer.
Okay, cool. I don't see any other questions. Let me just double check. Yeah, it seems like that's basically all our questions for today. Thank you so much, guys, for asking your questions. I think it has really give us, further depth of insight as to what's AI. But like Bilal said, we can actually converse about this all day. Unfortunately, we obviously do not have all day, and I think that is time for us.
Yeah. So once again, thanks everyone for attending, for taking the time to attend this. And like I say, always, please invite others. I want to create this awareness. I need people to be aware of what's happening in the world. And just as, so many of you expressed fears, there's fears all over the place. People are afraid because on one hand, we've got economies that are in difficulties, like in our country, but we are not unique around the world. We've got our own set of problems, right? With things like load shedding and things, and corruption. But if you look at other countries, look at what's happening in India right now. There's this massive protests going on in the country by farmers who feel that they are going to be wiped out by big corporations. So one is the economies, but there's also now the added fear of technology, and there's a concerns around what's going to happen. But there's also the kids that are coming out of school. I mean, yesterday metric results were released, and people all over are asking the question: what do we do? What do our kids do? What should they study? Should they go to university? Should they study a BCom? Should they study engineering? What is out there? So what my aim and my mission in life is to create awareness among people that, guys, see, this is what's happening in the world of technology, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. These are the opportunities. So to link people with the opportunities that technology will provide, and technology is providing lots and lots of opportunities. And remember, the next frontier for massive growth is Africa. North America is fully developed. Europe is fully developed. Asia is almost fully developed. If you look at all the tiger countries, all the way from the Middle East, all the way down through China and Japan, there's not much opportunities, but there are plenty opportunities in Africa. As the population grows, as the population becomes more tech savvy, as people become more and more wealthy, there's going to be lots and lots of opportunities in Africa. There are already lots of opportunities. And if we as people living in Africa don't take advantage of these opportunities, trust me, there are others that are going to come and they're going to wipe us out, and we're going to be like, well, okay, why didn't we think of that? So please tell others about this webinar. We are going to post this video onto YouTube. It's also going to be on Facebook immediately after this session is over. And I also post little snippets on Instagram and LinkedIn. So please, guys, share this every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Invite your friends and family and colleagues, and come in your big numbers. We want to hear your concerns, and we want you to share your knowledge with us. Awesome stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.